8 years ago, I traveled to the jungles of Peru to drink ayahuasca with a shaman in search for self-healing. Would you like to hear my story? Hi, I'm Spira. Welcome to my channel. I usually talk about yoga, and I also offer yoga classes. And I like to talk about self-healing and self-care, especially when it comes to trauma healing. So what I want to talk to you today about is my trip to Peru. So 8 years ago, 9 years ago, it was 2011, I was having a really hard time. Now, at the time, I was diagnosed with trauma. I was diagnosed with PTSD, but I wasn't given any direction. I wasn't given any information on how to heal or what healing options I had. The therapist that I was seeing at the time, she didn't even blink. Apparently she just didn't know anything about trauma. And now a lot of therapists know a lot more, and I think a lot of citizens know more. I think the word trauma has become a little more widespread and people are understanding it more. So at the time, I was experiencing a lot of difficulty. I was dysregulated, and it was a very sort of a darker time in my life. But I'd been doing a lot of work, I'd been doing healing work since the mid-90s, and I was really frustrated because I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. I spent years in therapy, and I didn't feel like I was making a lot of progress, and I couldn't understand why. Of course, now I know that therapy doesn't actually heal trauma. Therapy can really help us in a lot of different ways, but with trauma, the brain isn't even really working properly, so it's not exactly going to get you where you want to be until you start healing the trauma in your body. Having said that, at the time, I thought that my biggest issues were depression and anxiety and the mood swings and everything. And I remember thinking, I've been peeling the layers, and I've gotten to this point where it was like I hit this hard space, and I used to say to people, it's like I'm peeling the layers like an onion. People often use that metaphor, and I get to a place and I hit a pit, like somebody put an avocado pit in my onion, and I couldn't figure out what that was all about, why that was the way it was, and why I wasn't feeling better, So I just felt a calling. I can't explain it. It just, wow, now I have to think about how I even came across it. Well, I'd heard of ayahuasca before. I had a friend who had traveled to Peru years prior to that, about 10 years prior to that. And he had invited me, but I didn't go because I also thought at the time when he first mentioned it to me, he kind of made it sound like it was a psychedelic. And I didn't fully understand the concept of plant medicines. I did understand, for me at the time, psychedelics were kind of fun. And it was something that I had done in my 20s. And it was, interesting, and it opened up my mind and all of that. But I didn't fully understand the healing properties of it. And a lot of people didn't then either. There was this knowledge that it was healing, but no one could really say exactly why. And it's not the same now. Now we know a lot more. As a matter of fact, now, if you look at, like Johns Hopkins, for example, has created, a whole wing for psychedelic studies. And the MAPS Institute, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, they also have been conducting research now for many years on psychedelics as medicine. So it's interesting to me, now that we know what we know, it's pretty cool that some of these plants are proving to be very beneficial for healing. But here's the bigger question. Does ayahuasca cure trauma? And here was my experience. So, I will actually share more stories later if you're interested with more details about my journeys, because ayahuasca, every time you drink it, it's a separate journey, right? And I went for a 10-day retreat, and I just committed. I dedicated myself right away. I felt like, okay, this could be it for me, because I did believe strongly in energy medicine, and I thought, well, combined with this natural plant and working with a shaman, for some reason in my heart, I felt like this was the way to go. And I don't have any regrets. I still feel like that was the way to go at the time. So fair enough. And I can also tell you in more detail later how I found the shaman that I ended up working with, and how you can as well, because I think that's an important element that people don't often talk about. And there are many charlatans out there, so you have to be careful. Anyway, I did go, and I spent my 10 days in the jungle, and I fasted for 2 weeks before I went. They tell you it's a good idea to fast before you go, and I took it very seriously. I organized the trip months in advance. Interesting side note, I actually did not have the money when I first wanted to go, and here's a little bit of woo-woo for you, right? I actually prayed to Spirit or the universe, right, to help make it happen. My words, I remember my words, and they were, hey, if this is meant to happen for me, make it happen. Let's see, So the beauty of this was I had decided in the fall of 2010 that I wanted to go. In February of 2011, I got the biggest tax return I'd ever gotten, because I had just purchased a condo, and I was really, really fortunate. I purchased my condo through a special program as an affordable housing program, and I was teaching at the time in public schools. I wasn't making a lot of money, and it was a wonderful program for me. It was made for people like me who, so that they can afford to live in the communities that they are teaching in, or just that they're living in, So I had bought the condo, and I was settled in, and I got this huge tax refund, and it was just enough to cover the retreat and a plane ticket. So talk about perfection, right? Talk about timing, and I don't know, some people can call it manifestation. I don't know. If you want to, you're welcome to. Let's do it. So I went, and without giving a lot of details of what happened during each ceremony, I will tell you in the end. I should tell you first, there are some people that go there and they instantly feel like their life has changed. They instantly feel like they have these huge epiphanies and huge spiritual awakenings and stuff like that. It didn't happen so much that way for me, because I think some of it was I had already had spiritual awakenings, so it wasn't like that was not my experience. I didn't have to buy into any of it because I was already in, if that makes any sense, It wasn't a big aha moment for me to be in ceremony and to meet with healing spirits, because it was not unusual for me. It just didn't seem like a foreign experience. I was very accepting, like, okay, this is what's happening. And so I think that's one of the differences. But, and I'd been doing this work for years. I'd been doing spiritual work as well as healing work, However, when I got home, I did notice that I felt different. And what I do know now is, and this is what the studies are showing, they're learning that ayahuasca is sort of a reset, and it's, in a way, it resets your default mode network. I'm not going to get into a big discussion of default mode network now. That could be another video, but it's a reset. It basically just helps you kind of start over. It helped me with my depression, and it helped me with my anxiety, and I felt very peaceful, very at ease. But what I didn't know was that it was only a reset. I think that if people go to drink ayahuasca with the idea that it's going to solve their problems and heal them and make their depression magically disappear, I think they're going to be disappointed. Not at first. You'll definitely feel better immediately. You'll definitely feel more at peace and more calm, but that's because it's a reset. Having said that, you still have to do the work. So for me, that's kind of what happened. I went in there thinking that I was going to be healed in some way, and then I came home and I felt so much better, and everyone noticed, you know, when I came home, and I had a dog at the time, and when I would, even just walking my dog and seeing my neighbors, they'd say, wow, you look so different, you're glowing. And it was true. I was glowing. I was full of light and love and just really positive energy, and I felt amazing. And it was summertime, so I wasn't working because I'm a I was a teacher, so I had the summer off. So it wasn't until September that I went back to work, and so what ended up happening was, you know, I ended up going back to work like most people do. I was lucky. I had a little time before I went back right away. But, you know, it didn't last a whole long time. I felt better for a while. I felt better for months. However, my work environment was quite toxic, and I still had trauma. I still had the brain damage that trauma causes. It's very similar to what they call a traumatic brain injury. And I was completely unaware of any of that. So I eventually ended up slipping back into the difficult stuff. And after that, I will say, I felt like I kept searching. I just kept searching and looking for relief from all of this stuff. It wasn't until, you know, a year and a half or so ago that I finally discovered the key to real healing. The beauty of it is, though, that I can still say that ayahuasca changed my life. It was an incredible experience. I had incredible ceremonies. I met amazing entities and healing spirits, and it really inspired my artwork. I made a series of paintings as a result. You know, it's the psychedelic experience and the spiritual experience are very unique. And what's really interesting is that we also know that, you know, the brain is very complex, and your brain doesn't really know if what you're imagining is real or not. So we can kind of imagine whatever we want. And I think the study that I'm thinking about that comes to mind is there was a study where they had, you know, a couple of sports teams. One of them were training and practicing, and then the other team were told to visualize practicing, right? And there was, there was no big difference between the two teams in the end, you know, like the other team played as if they had been practicing. So, you know, I can't give you all the little minute details or what that study was called. I'll see if I can look it up, but that really fascinated me. And they did similar studies with ayahuasca because you do get visions, and the visions are very clear, they're very lucid. That's why I didn't see it as a psychedelic when I did end up drinking it. To me, it was almost like being in a dream state with my eyes closed, and it was just, you know, being in a movie. But whenever I needed to pause to maybe get up to go to the bathroom or something, which was the only reason I even got up at all, otherwise I had no reason to get up, I felt pretty sober to get up to use the bathroom and come back to my little mat. Now, not everybody feels that way. There are some people who just can't get up and walk. It's like they're drunk, you know. It is different for everyone. But for me, I felt pretty lucid, and the visions that I had were really clear and beautiful. And I remember trying as hard as I could to remember the details, and I did take notes afterwards. Like the next day, I would spend some time trying to recollect the memories of those visions and what they could have meant for me, you know, what the meaning could have been, what the symbolism could have been, because it is like a dream, you know, except that it feels a little more real than a dream. So anyway, I know that there are people who will come back from an ayahuasca ceremony and say things like, oh my God, I'm totally healed and I'm totally better. But it's usually people that have gone within a few months. So the reason why I wanted to make this video now is because it has been 9 years, and actually 9 years pretty much now. I was there I think the last 2 weeks of July, so, or the first week of August, and I was just coming back. So it's kind of my 9-year anniversary from it. I think now that I have this many years to look back and to reflect on what my experience was, I think it's actually better that I waited this long to tell my story and to give you some of the, I don't know, feedback or some of my thoughts on my personal experience. So I hope it's helpful in some way. And if you, I'm going to stop here because I don't want to get into the big thing. Like I've said before, I'm a talker. Sometimes I talk a little too long. So I'm going to stop the video here, but I will make maybe I'll make videos about some of the other events, you know, the actual experiences. I will add though that even if it didn't help, and it did help, but even if it didn't help, just the fact that I got to go to the Amazon jungle was huge. I had been dreaming about that since childhood. I was obsessed with National Geographic, and there were 3 main places that I wanted to go. And, you know, we didn't have anything called a bucket list back then, but I did have a list of things I wanted to do in my life, and one of them was to see the Amazon jungle. And one of 3 places, I shouldn't say 3 things, 3 specific places. I wanted to see the Amazon jungle. Check, I got to go there. I wanted to see the Kilauea volcano in Hawaii, and check, I got to go there twice, actually. And the 3rd one is the Serengeti Plains in Tanzania, which I haven't gone to yet. But I stress the word yet because I will get to go someday. I just don't know when it's going to be, but I'll get to go someday. Okay, well, I am going to end here, and I thank you for joining me, and thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. If you did drink ayahuasca more than 5 years ago, I would love to hear your comments and about your experience, and also why you went, because I do think that it can help with depression and things like that. I don't think it can cure or heal trauma. I think it can give us a reset, but then we have to do the work. So that's my personal opinion based on my personal experience. So now I want to know where you're at, because I know that we all experience it differently. But again, I'm looking to see if you've done it more than a few years ago, not just, 6 months ago, because even for me, after 6 months, I was like, oh, I'm healed, So anyway, if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. And also, if you would like to hear more of my stories of my ayahuasca journey, or even some of my other spiritual adventures that I've had, I would love to answer it for you if you have questions. So yeah, put it all in the comments below. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Namaste.